Hey y'all, how we doing? Shout out once again to Bear Nation for tuning in to another episode of the Bear Necessities podcast. I am your host, Rob Napoli. The Bear Necessities is a podcast where we sit down with entrepreneurs, ecosystem partners, and innovation folks to talk about what it takes and means to launch, create, and scale business across the world. We talk about the journey and the challenges of being entrepreneur-minded and how that translates into your journey, giving you the tools and knowledge to overcome challenges that you may be facing in your life's journey. The Bear Necessities is part of the Rise Up Media family, and we thank you for tuning in. Now, let's get into the show. Hello, Bear Nation. We are back again for another episode of the Bear Necessities podcast. I'm joined here today by two of my favorite people from an organization that I've done a lot of work with, Starta Ventures. Starta is a venture ecosystem to find, foster, and fund early stage talent in tech. And with me today is the partner of our accelerator program, Anastasia, and Gabe, who is the program director. Gabe and Anastasia, say hello to Bear Nation for me.
Hi, Bear Nation.
So I was really excited. And for those that aren't watching the video, I'm lucky enough to do this in person in the Starta offices headquartered in New York City. And it's nice to be back in person and sit and chat with you. And the idea today is wanted to highlight a little bit about Starta and what the work that you do here and the impact that both of your roles mean here. So Gabe, I'm gonna let you go first and kind of introduce your role and yourself into the Starta ecosystem.
Sure. So thank you, Rob, for the intro. I'm Gabriel. I am the program director here. So basically what I do is run the program. So we run two accelerators a year, one in the spring and one in the fall, between 15 and 20 international early stage tech startups. And I run the program. Mm-hmm. So I'm talking about, the day-to-day, bringing in coaches, setting up workshops, pairing each startup with what we call an EIR or an entrepreneur in residence or an advisor. Pairing each startup with interns, and then eventually the culminating moment of the accelerator, which is the demo day. So getting all that preparation.
And nothing's better than a Starta party.
Nothing's better.
For those that don't know what a Starta party is like, and if you're ever in New York City, you're going to have to come and join. So that's amazing. And, one of the things that I think is really cool about your role is the interaction you get to have with all these startups. And in fact, for those that don't know, Gabe's background isn't the startup tech ecosystem. Gabe, by trade, went to school to be an actor. He sings, he's a musician, multi-talented. And so and I think your origin story of how you got into this ecosystem, being on a bus and meeting somebody. So tell us a little bit how you kind of fell into wanting to work in this ecosystem and how you heard about it for the first time.
Sure. So one of the reasons it starts with me being an actor. So one of the reasons why I always wanted to be an actor, Rob, was because I knew I wanted to change the way people thought about things, or I wanted to change the world in some way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. And back then when I was in acting school, it was about walking into a theater different from how you walk out of a theater. And lo and behold, I went to acting school and I got my first gig right out of school. I knew in my heart it kind of wasn't what I wanted to do, but I still knew that I wanted to, change the world in some way, shape, or form. So I started, doing the typical things that, failed actors do, or even working actors do, which is work in restaurants. Mm-hmm. So I worked in restaurants for many years, and through that learned a lot about wine, a lot about beer. And so I actually used to bartend the demo days each year for a few years before actually coming on board at Starta.
Amazing.
So that's kind of how I got introduced into this whole world. So, I would go to these demo days and I would hear each passionate founder get up one after the other and pitch their business. And then on the other side, I would kind of hear what the investors were saying by my bar table. And it was just really fun. And I knew I wanted to be a part of it somehow. You mentioned bus ride with, I can't remember her name, but it was for Huge Ventures, or Huge is the name of the company. And basically they did Zell. Mm-hmm. So they incubate ideas and they basically sell them off to really, really big, like Fortune 500 companies. And so we had this 45-minute conversation on the train, and I went home and was super inspired, very, very excited. And I wrote her like maybe a 3-page email explaining how I don't have any business background, but I'll do whatever it takes, you know, to like prove to you that this is what I want to do. And she never responded, actually, which was fine because I wouldn't be here maybe if she did. And so my partner actually was like, dude, what are you doing? Like you've been bartending at Starta for like years, just go there. And I was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. And instead of, you know, being incubation, it's an accelerator. It's just a little bit, it's like the next phase. So that even excited me more. And I eventually just called Anastasia and asked if I could intern, and
here we are today.
Yeah, here we are.
So I'll have you pass the mic. So Anastasia, why don't you kind of talk about your background and what you do here at Starta? Because for those that don't actually know, is that I joined Starta as an EIR and coach back when you took over the program. In fact, how I met you is I emailed Ala 11, and Ala was like, I'm no longer on the program, meet Anastasia. And then I came in and sat down with you and met with you back in, this is 2018 when we first met. So why don't you talk about your journey here?
Yeah, so well, basically for me, it was a little different story, but it is kind of similar to Gabe's in the regard that I don't really have like a business educational background, and I'm kind of maybe looking into that a little bit more now, but I still kind of see that like a lot of the founders even that I work with, you know, like they kind of come from all kind of like sorts of ways, and sometimes it's just so random, but it matches what they are passionate about. So that was kind of my case too. So I actually used to be in startups before I joined Starta, and I was in 3 companies, and none of them got, you know, very successful, unfortunately. But I went through like all the ups and downs with them together, and it was kind of like a crazy journey for me. And then I mostly did marketing in all those companies. And then one of the companies, one of my last companies, I was a co-founder of the company. And I was just kind of like realizing that my whole life I've been doing like business, like, you know, in school, like even like in kindergarten, I always had some sort of like business things that I was like doing. Like I had a photo studio, which was pretty successful. Like I had a bunch of different things. And then it all kind of came together for me when I learned more about the startup ecosystem. Because guess what? Like when I was on all these companies, I didn't really know I was in a startup company. It just kind of felt like something I was doing, like something I'm trying to make work, something I'm trying to put life into, right? And then like I was like, oh, I'm missing something. Like I was like in my early 20s, I was like, I'm missing out on something. There's something that just doesn't like match. And I started learning more about how, you know, businesses work, how they operate, how a startup company can work, and all this stuff. And I started doing research, and I was already in New York at that time. I was, you know, trying to make my company work. And I just like started researching all the different events that were happening. I learned, you know, that there is a venture ecosystem, all of that stuff. And I came to one of Starta's like first events. I think that was like maybe, oh my God, it was like a long time ago, but it was like maybe batch 2 or 3. And they had like one of those kind of like crypto blockchain or something events. And that's how I met originally my partner, Alexi. And that's kind of how I fell in love with this whole ecosystem. It just felt like all of my passions just came together in this like hot pot of like just activities. And it was just, I don't know, it was just like love from first sight. And I got a part-time job also as a marketing, basically like person. I don't even know what I did. I just like did all sorts of marketing. I did a little bit of coding because I like also have like a technical background. So like I just did everything. And it was a part-time job at first. And then after like 2 weeks, it was full-time. So I just like was like, I would just want to do this. And, you know, we kind of like just matched really well. And then, and just from there, I initially was doing more and more marketing. And then I kind of like learned more about the deal making side of the business. And right now I used to run the program, like you mentioned when we first met. And then after that, I'm switching more to like kind of follow-on support for our graduates. So I'm looking into how they can fundraise better. I'm trying to, you know, help them raise funds basically, and also trying to make sure that the accelerator and the fund that we're choosing the right companies to work with and invest in. And just in general, just like growing our ecosystem. We are, you know, scaling into a bunch of different countries right now. So hopefully within the next couple of years, we're going to have like so much to talk about again, like so much, like, you know, so many updates for you. So hopefully that would be the case.
And I love it too, because both of you have very different, unique ways of finding this. And the idea when I launched this podcast was entrepreneurship comes from anywhere and everywhere, and entrepreneurship is fucking hard. And that, especially when we were in school, now there's like classes on entrepreneurship and majors for it. Like I didn't know about entrepreneurship until years after I got out of school and I was working as a recruiter, and there was the first startup company that came to Des Moines called Dwala, and Ashton Kutcher invested into it. And that's when I was like, this whole startup ecosystem was something new for me. And that's when I moved to Italy, I wanted to get involved in this. So I love that this ecosystem exists. So let's kind of transition into what Starta is, because I said, it's find, foster, fun, but what does that mean? Because there's the accelerator aspect to it, there's the fund aspect to it. So maybe break down kind of different areas of Starta and the different programs you run.
Yeah, well, I mean, so it all starts with find, right? So us finding the talent, and I mean, like, even though we mostly work with startups that are a little bit, not mature, but like a little later stage, not like idea stage or anything like that. Sometimes we do work with, pretty mature companies as well. We're still looking for talent in the first place. So we're looking for people who have the passion, people who have that like bug, somebody like bites you when you're like a child or like a little kid and you just can't look back. You always have to like hustle and do things. So we're kind of looking for that kind of talent in people. We're looking for people who really match with their passion and trying to make it work. And I think that's, that's relevant at pretty much any stage of your business. So like it could be an idea stage, could be a later stage, could be, really any stage. So we're looking for that talent. And we are, as a company, I think, honestly, just like what we do gives us so much joy because we are, like, our business model is basically helping people.
Yeah.
Like, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to provide, like, resources for them to grow. We're trying to, make the right connections. We're trying to invite relevant people. So we have, like, something happening. And it's just a great feeling waking up every day and knowing that you basically live. Yes, we live to make money like all investors, but we also like live to help these people sincerely. So it's like, it's like, I don't know, it's just a good feeling.
Yeah.
Have and from my point of view, just to tag along to this, being raised, in America, and then kind of having the veil pulled away, this like grandiose idea of like anybody can make it, and then I've come to the startup accelerator and Starta in general, and I meet all these founders who are having all these problems entering the U.S. market because it's not easy. It's very difficult. You need a network. You need somebody backing you. Otherwise, you're really kind of, for lack of a better word, screwed. I mean, like, you can find your way, you can hustle, but you need to know people.
Yeah.
And so I think we're really like bridging that gap.
Yeah, I mean, and I've talked about in earlier episodes about what an accelerator does in terms of reason you go through accelerator is to speed up the time to market, whatever stage that is, from early stage to later stage, and then expanding upon that market and creating, because a lot of the work that I do with founders from all over the world is, hey, what got you to $5 million in your home country it probably won't work in the US market. There's different ways to look at business. There's different ways that you have to sell the business and talk about it. Raising funds is a whole big process that we could do a whole other episode on. And that's what I think is unique, is there's a lot of accelerators out there. There's a lot of ecosystems. We use that word, we kind of throw it around in communities. And what I think that makes Starta so unique is that it's truly an ecosystem that is full life cycle, from early stage and find, from things like School of C, which is building an MVP, to the Launchpad program, which is like the incubator, to the accelerator program that you both run, to then the funding and the postgraduate. Once they go through accelerator, what the hell do they do now? How do they go about getting funding? You guys have the co-invest platform, and you do direct investments, plus a whole network of investors. In fact, I think you guys have a program to teach people how to be investors through the Starta ecosystem. And that's what I think makes Starta so unique. And you talk about the joy you find in helping founders and entrepreneurs grow their businesses. What is the essence of why does Starta do what it does? Like, what do you think, when this was founded and this was being built, and I've seen it grow over the last 4 or 5 years, where does that come from? And what is the impact that you aim to make through the work that you do here? Gabe, I'll let you go first, and then I'll pass it to you.
So what is the impact I aim to make? I aim to give, I guess it's sort of similar to what I said before, but to give everyone like a fair shake. And like I said, if you're an international founder, you've got a disadvantage.
Yeah.
If you're a female founder and you're an international founder, you've got a disadvantage. If you're a person of color and you're an international founder and you're a female, you have the biggest disadvantage anybody could ever place upon you. And providing that network for these founders, giving them that stamp of approval, it means the world. I don't really know if I just answered that.
You did in a very big way of, there's a lot of power in network and being a part of that network and creating opportunity. And I think that's one thing that I know you strive to do, you both do, but Starta as an ecosystem strives to do is create opportunity and a place and a space for people to come here for 3 months, get training, get messaging help, get network help, so they have a fair shake to take that and move it on to the next level. And I think that's something that we talk about. We like, oh, accelerators this and ecosystem that, and very few people really understand what it takes to be and why accelerators are there to make an impact. What about you? Like, what's part of the why?
I mean, so I definitely agree with everything Gabe said about, a fair shake. It is like really, it's a problem, and we are trying our best to, maybe not solve it, but do something about it, so help in any kind of way. But there's also like a more selfish aspect to what I'm doing and why I'm doing that. When it comes to me personally, I just love anything new. Like when it comes to innovation, like I'm a geek. Like, I like tech. Like I said, I have like a technical, more or less background. Like I enjoy learning about like all the different technologies, industries. And I just think it's like really important what we're doing in general. I think venture capital in a way, I mean, it's going to sound maybe a little rough, but it's kind of like this whole charity organization for the world to be able to like move forward.
Yeah.
Because all of these like venture capitalists, all of our investors, we all like invest in different projects and 99% of them fail.
Yeah.
And then there's this 1% that changes the world.
Yeah.
And a lot of us lose money. Like a lot of investors lose money on their investments. And, it is like, it's hard to win this game. It's a very risky, very hard to win game.
Yeah.
But in the end, all of us make this huge difference. Like we make things happen. If you look at all the biggest like startups, all the biggest technologies that recently came out, like it's all, initially was funded by venture capital.
Yeah.
And so I really think that what we do here, even if it's sometimes like it's just another marketplace or something, maybe it's not like all of us, it's not all the startups are not like super deep tech or anything like that. Still, a lot of them make a difference. Look at Uber. Uber was a marketplace, and right now they're like lobbying. They're changing the way that people get hired. They're changing the way infrastructure works in general for a lot of countries, a lot of people. And so it's just what I really think we are doing here is we are funding innovation for humanity at a very, very early stage.
Yeah.
And so I think that's incredibly important. And that honestly is one of the things that, I really think that what I do matters. Like I wake up every day and know that what I do matters. And that's like the one most important like thing for me.
Yeah. And that's why, I love being a part of this ecosystem. I've been around and been in this for going on 5 years now and see the evolution of it. And, the way that you think about venture capital, and some people have negative viewpoints of venture capital and for obvious reasons and whatnot. But when you think about what you just said here, is that 99% of those fail, but that failure leads to a lot of lessons learned, both for Starta, but for those founders. And some of them may not go on to create the next Uber, but they may go work for Uber or IBM or Apple or Facebook or one of these big companies and take that innovation, those lessons learned, and create something totally new with a company that has that. But they would never have had that opportunity to innovate and try if they hadn't failed at starting something on their own. And so the ecosystem itself revitalizes itself. And that's what people don't realize. And that's where I think something like this, where so many opportunities for failure to turn into learning lessons and create innovation. Because innovation doesn't come without failure. We all like to think that these great ideas are perfect and it's like one shining moment, but it's a ton of failures that leads to that success, because you can't have success without failure. And I think that's what so many people don't see. And that's where I think accelerator ecosystems are so genuine in making that impact.
And I just think it's important because like a lot of people, like if they're not on that side, like on the VC side, they don't realize that. They think it's just like all huge money and like, returns like 20, 200x, I don't know.
We've glorified the VC world in a way.
It's glorified, but it's really a lot of failures, and you have to be kind of like okay with that every day.
Well, and to think too is that the conversations that you're in, while all these amazing companies come in, some of them are tough conversations because you watch them and see that they don't grow and don't evolve and know that they're not able to be invested in or they're not going to be able to scale, and to be able to give that feedback and have those tough conversations with founders as well is not an easy skill, and something that's the dirty side of it that no one sees. Like that's the hard part. And that's where when I set out this journey of entrepreneurship and building this whole podcast was to share that, because it's not sunshine and rainbows. It's a tough world. And so, Starta, based here in New York and then out of Russia, and we've got a lot of stuff happening, but you've launched a few new programs too. So let's talk about some of the things in 2022 people can look forward to. So, we talked about the accelerator, but what are some other programs? We've got Berlin that just launched, the Africa program that launched. So why don't you tell me a little bit, give me a breakdown of some of the other programs outside of the accelerator that Starta has going on right now?
So you can take it.
Yeah, so basically it's not going to be like outside the accelerator. It is going to be part of the accelerator. So the New York program will stay our flagship program. And then we are going to be doing, like you said, a bunch more this year. So we just opened up our Berlin office. Berlin is really, really hot right now. So it was just like partially luck, but just partially like really good timing on our side. So that's going to be more of a bootcamp program at first, where we are going to be preparing startups there, local startups there for entering, this, the global market, like we call it, the United States market is sort of, it's the global market, let's be honest. Yeah. So they're going to be entering the United States through that program. So the program itself is going to be a little shorter than the flagship program, but the idea is that they can join the flagship after that. And after we do this first program, it's going to be starting this spring. We are going to see, we might potentially just launch a full-blown program there as well. So that's still our first batch. It's very exciting.
Yeah.
And we did some, testing, and it looks like it's just going to be, I don't know, it should be really, really good. I'll tell you how it goes. Yeah.
I'm excited. And so, Gabe, you got to go to Russia for the first time for the Yakutia program. Talk about your experience going to Russia for the first time. And I know, Anastasia was so worried about you being cold. I remember we were sitting here ordering Carhartt.
To Russia, he went to the coldest city on earth.
Yeah.
That was his first time in Russia. It's official. Like if you Google it, it's on Wikipedia. It's the coldest city on earth.
So
in
December.
In December. So I loved this trip for so many reasons. So yes, the place she's talking about, the coldest place in the world, is Yakutia, which is northeast Russia for people who don't know. It's like the southern Siberia, I think, technically. What a culture shock, but in a very good way. So just speaking about Yakutia, the temperature there is -40 on average in Celsius, which is the same in Fahrenheit once you go negative. But it's very, very cold. It's insanely cold. It's so cold that when you step outside, your face freezes, like literally. So like your nose hairs become spikes in your nose, and your eyebrows frost and your eyelashes frost. And, it's about getting from one place to the other whenever you have to step outside, which is similar to New York in the winter. But yeah, I was inspired by the people, and I was, impressed that in this is, by the way, Yakutia is the largest state in Russia. It's the size of India.
Wow.
It has a population of 300,000 people in the entire span of this area. And even even in this area, you have accelerators popping up, and you have entrepreneurs thriving and wanting to better their community and also go global.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that we were doing there. We had run a smaller program with an accelerator there called B8, and we were there visiting for their demo day. And it was spectacular. We actually ended up grabbing 3 of the startups that went through that program, and they're going to be coming through our program now.
That's amazing.
So we're really excited for that. The food, the food was a completely different experience for me, because, they eat a lot of different things, especially in Yakutia. So one of the things that I thought was super fascinating, that I admire, is that each family, every year, they cross the river and they go buy a horse and a cow, and then they bring it back, and this is frozen, by the way, and then they go to the butcher, they chop it up into nice pieces, I guess, and then they put it on their porch for the entire year, and they eat off of this slowly but surely throughout the entire year. It's a place that, you can't just drive by someone on the side of the street.
Yeah.
Because if someone's stranded, let's say their car is stranded and you drive by it, that means you're basically telling that person to go, they can go die.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna die unless you help them.
cold.
So everybody knows each other, and you would think that people would be like depressed, like, you know, people in Seattle, like they're all depressed. Like, you know, they have the largest, like, no, because it's like, sorry, people in Seattle, but you know, like, I mean, people, they say that they get very depressed because of the weather.
Yeah.
That is the opposite of the case, and they should be way more, you know, depressed. But instead, you see, you know, people just thriving.
It's a community.
The sense of community is so strong there, and so I was really amazed by that. And then I went back to Moscow and spent like a few days there. And Moscow, I fell in love with as well. I mean, I'm going to go back to both places, by the way, this summer. I'm really excited about it. Moscow is like so similar to New York. And I didn't realize this. It's basically New York just stretched out, you know, and in a very big way.
It's funny when you start traveling and go to new places, and like when you experience those cultures and actually ingrain yourself in those cultures, what you can learn. And that's one of the cool things that I love about this, is that one of the goals of this show is to interview an entrepreneur from every part of the world. And I mean every part of every country. And we represent, I think, 22 countries right now through the 37 episodes, and I think 10 states or 11 states. And my goal is every state, every country, and even breaking out through that. So, you know, it's exciting because this is, you know, people always ask where do I get my guests. My network is, I'm ingrained in these networks, so I get to meet all these cool things, and Starta is a big place for that. And so I think that's really exciting to see as we look at 2022 and beyond, and the globalization of the world, and that entrepreneurship can come from anywhere, and the accelerators are starting to grow and scale. And there's some amazing programs that y'all are running that it's only brighter futures to see some amazing innovation and technology come from places that we never expected, not from the Valley or New York or Moscow or Paris or Berlin, but from unique places and, you know, small communities of countries the size of in India with only 300,000 people. And that's cool that you guys are able to develop those type of opportunities for them. And then also to bring that here, you know, Starta had, was it 20 companies in the last batch?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think seven countries represented, or 20, how many countries was like?
Oh
like
man.
I don't know.
I don't know. I can tell you continents, countries. There's so many different ones. I mean, there's probably like at least 10 different countries.
Yeah.
But the continents are like four.
Yeah, four continents, 10 countries in the just last batch alone. And, you know, it's really interesting is when we started Anastasia, it was mostly Eastern Europe, and now it's truly global. And there's, you know, companies from the US, there's companies from South America, Central America, all over Europe, and, you know, Africa, and going into, you know, Asia Pac as well. So I think that's really cool, and excited to see where the programs go and grow. So as we kind of close up, and I know there's so much more that we could talk about and do, as we kind of close out, what are you most excited for about 2022 and the things that you get to do because of your role in this ecosystem? What excites you most about this year?
Oh my God, that's such a loaded question for me, because like literally everything's possible. That's like the best thing about it. So it's honestly at this point, I feel like for us, obviously there are like certain constraints that we have to work with, but it's like a little scary, because I feel like the things that we want to do are only limited, but like what we can imagine, you know what I mean? And so a lot of ways I'm trying to think bigger sometimes when I'm building plans for next year. And I think this year is going to be the year that we are going to be just like seeing a lot of expansion activity on our side. So we are working really hard on launching those side programs. So we kind of briefly mentioned Africa there, and a lot of other countries are kind of like in the pipeline and like other initiatives. And this is also the year where I feel like as a company just kind of found ourselves just one more time, because right now we have all those different, not just accelerator, we also have School of C that you mentioned. We also have a coding like school for, you know, developers. We also have an angel school. So all of these things are coming together. And I feel like this year is the year that our ecosystem actually kind of fortifies itself and grows only bigger from there.
Yeah.
And so like literally anything is possible. That's like the best thing about just in general. I feel like Starta in a lot of ways is a startup, and we work with startups. And like when it comes to entrepreneurship in general, it's like, everything's possible.
Yeah.
It's like just how big can you go?
Yeah.
You know, how big can you dream? So yeah, it's just, I don't know. I don't even know. I feel like next year might be just such a different story for us in general that, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what's exciting is that I do feel like, because a lot of programs that were developed in the last year and a half, but this is the first year, 2022 is going to be the first year that all the programs are running in conjunction together to create a full ecosystem. There's a lot of testing and let's run it and see if this works. Let's test this. And now it's like, okay, these things work. How do we integrate them all into tying together into the ecosystem, into the flagship programs, into our investing side of things? And how do we create more impact? And that is exciting because there's so much opportunity for it. What about you, Gabe?
Well, she really said everything that I wanted to say. And I'm not just saying that because it's true. You know, our limits are our imagination, and we can go as far as we want. I'm really excited on a more particular level for a few initiatives. So we have the global initiative that we're running, where, you know, we hopefully partner with, you know, some countries out there and run more curated programs. So I'm really excited about that. We have a couple other things in the pipeline that I can't even talk about that I'm excited about. There's just so many things. Obviously, expanding in Africa, that's been, you know, on our radar. And judging from this past cohort, the founders are insanely great. They're top notch, super untapped, and, you know, I think building that out is going to be really, really, really amazing. But yeah, I mean, I just can't wait to see what happens.
I have something else to add. So just like in a lot of ways, I think what I also am really excited about is just like the people I'm going to meet. Because like anytime we have any kind of cohort or batch, you know, there are just some people there that you're like, wow, like they just like keep inspiring you. I think like this is one of the reasons why, you know, we keep going and like just keep being, I don't know, so excited about the future, because we meet so many people that really like give you that energy to kind of keep going. Like they inspire you, like, oh my god, like this guy is so passionate about what he does. You just like want to live to see what happens.
I feel the same way. I mean, having been around for 5 years, and I still talk to a number of founders from, I think, batch 8 or 9 when I started and all the subsequent batches, and just seeing them continue to grow personally and professionally is something so exciting and invigorating. And, you know, in some small role that I had to play in whatever development of their business or their personal professional life is something that keeps me going as a passion burning. And I know that you do that every day. And you both mentioned that's what wakes you up, and super excited to see what 2022 holds. And so we got the accelerator program that launches in the spring coming up, right?
Yeah, March 1st.
So we have one coming up in March 1st. How many companies come into that batch?
20.
20 companies. Is this batch 13 now?
Lucky 13.
Yeah, this will be Lucky 13.
So starting in March. So if anyone out in Bear Nation listening, Thursday nights are pitch nights. The reason why Starta parties, and I mentioned that at the top of the show, are so fun is because of what Anastasia just said, is there's so many amazing people from around the world bringing so much energy and passion and fire that when you get people like that in a room and then the wider ecosystem, it becomes an amazing just experience, conversation, and it always turns into karaoke. For those that don't know, Anastasia's boyfriend, Bobby, who's behind the camera helping us out today, also is an actor and sings like a god, and will always get the party started. And that's what makes like these ecosystems so unique. So I'm excited for that. So if you're listening, Bear Nation, and you want to get involved, let me know. I'll have both your LinkedIns, but how do they find the Starta program if they're interested?
So just go to our website. It's www.starta.vc. Go to For Startups, and you'll see apply under the accelerator bubble.
Excellent. So I will make sure to link all of that. I'll have both their LinkedIns in the show notes. I'll have the website in the show notes so you can get in touch if you want to get involved as a coach, as a mentor, or apply for the program. Reach out to one of these two or myself. And you know, thank you both for sitting down with me this afternoon, taking some time in your office to meet on a cold New York afternoon. Appreciate you both. And Bear Nation, until next time, thank you for tuning in. Stay well. Bear Nation, once again, thank you for tuning in and listening to the Bear Necessities podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave us a review. It really does help and means a lot to us at the show. And I want to thank our friends over at Fin. Fin is a social good platform that creates employee engagement and builds culture. It's our mission to support and give back to the communities that we serve around the world. And we do this by giving every guest on our show a $10 donation to the cause of their choosing using the Fin platform. Until next time, thank y'all, stay well, and rise up.